A team of archaeologists at the University of Oregon have found one of North America's oldest human-occupied sites in southern Oregon.
They also found the remains of 3 different Ice Age animals, which O'Grady says is very rare.
In the dry heart of Oregon, something ancient has surfaced, and it doesn't fit the story we were taught. Buried beneath layers of time, this discovery forces historians to pause, rethink, and ask uncomfortable questions. It points to a moment far earlier than expected, involving people, choices, and evidence that shouldn't be there, yet is. This isn't about rewriting history overnight. It's about a single place that refuses to stay quiet. One detail in particular changes how everything connects, but its meaning isn't obvious. The deeper we look, the stranger it becomes. The discovery at Rimrock Draw. In Oregon's high desert, a modest rock shelter called Rimrock Draw has quietly reshaped what we know about early human history in North America. Tucked beneath a cliff and surrounded by sagebrush, the site drew attention in 2009 when archaeologist Scott Thomas noticed an unusual line of rocks buried beneath tall grass. That grass hinted at deep, undisturbed soil. Early surface finds revealed stone spear points about 8,000 years old, but those were only the beginning. In 2011, a University of Oregon team led by Dr. Patrick O'Grady began careful excavations. Though the shelter was small, its location was ideal. A nearby stream once provided fresh water, and the rock overhang offered protection from harsh weather. These conditions made it a natural campsite for ancient peoples. As digging continued, it became clear the site held layers far older than expected. What made Rimrock Draw exceptional was what lay beneath volcanic ash from a Mount St. Helens eruption about 5,600 years ago. This ash acted as a natural seal, preserving everything below it. Any artifacts found underneath had to be older than the eruption, creating a reliable timeline. As deeper layers emerged, researchers realized the site recorded human activity spanning thousands of years. The site's intact stratigraphy told a clear story. Unlike places disturbed by erosion or animals, Rimrock Draw's layers remained largely undisturbed. This showed long-term human occupation during the last ice age, not a brief visit. These people lived through colder, harsher conditions than most early settlement models had assumed. Excavations revealed more than stone tools. Researchers uncovered preserved human hair, bone needles used for sewing, and tools designed to hunt and process large animals. These finds offered rare insight into daily life, showing skilled craftsmanship, planning, and adaptability. The people who lived here were not struggling to survive, they were thriving. The accumulated evidence of Rimrock Draw's work started to shake the very foundation of beliefs that have been considered up to now. The Clovis culture, dating to about 13,000 years ago, was regarded as the earliest American culture for over 100 years. But the age of human occupation at Rimrock Draw, based on radiocarbon dating of animal teeth and charcoal, was set to over 18,000 years. If the result is positive, then it will be the oldest known human site in North America. Such an early date necessitates a complete review of prevailing concepts related to migration routes, survival strategies, and other factors involved in the human presence. Rimrock Draw is more than a site. It is a source of confrontations with orthodox views, the ones that are still giving rise to new understanding of the first Americans as more evidence is being discovered. The mysteries of early migration routes become clearer when we examine the old but once widely accepted Clovis hypothesis alongside new archaeological findings. The Clovis theory challenged. For decades, the Clovis people have been celebrated as the first Americans. Named after distinctive stone tools first discovered near Clovis, New Mexico, they were thought to have migrated about 13,000 years ago via an ice-free corridor. This corridor was believed to run between massive ice sheets that otherwise blocked movement into much of North America. The Clovis model dominated textbooks and public understanding memes for generations, portraying them as pioneers crossing a land bridge from Asia. The basic story went like this. During the last ice age, sea levels dropped, exposing a land bridge called Beringia, connecting Siberia and Alaska. From there, the Clovis people supposedly walked down through an opening in ice sheets, a corridor, and spread throughout the continent. Their hallmark spear points appeared across archaeological sites, reinforcing the theory of their primacy and rapid expansion. It seemed a neat explanation for human settlement in the Americas. However, discoveries have increasingly undermined this narrative. Geological studies revealed that the ice-free corridor didn't actually open until about 12,000 years ago, well after Clovis had supposedly arrived. What's more, early surveys showed the corridor was a harsh, inhospitable landscape devoid of plants and animals, making it an unlikely migration path. Without food or shelter, early peoples could not have traversed it easily, if at all. Adding to this challenge were new sites with dates significantly older than Clovis. Places like Meadowcroft in Pennsylvania and Cooper's Ferry in Idaho revealed human artifacts and fire pits dating back 16,000 years or more. These precedents suggested that people were living in the Americas thousands of years before Clovis, throwing the first American's title into question. It became clear the Clovis model was incomplete, maybe even wrong. Scientists gradually came to accept that the saga of the earliest settlers was much more convoluted. In case the ice corridor wasn't the access route, then what was the way for native peoples to come to the continent so early? The Clovis first theory was put aside as researchers looked for alternative explanations. It was obvious that the early migration to America was going to be a long story with many more chapters still to be written. This change of attitude did not occur without arguments. The Clovis culture's leading position was not only undermined by new dating, but also by the necessity to review how humans would have managed to survive the very harsh Ice Age conditions. The notion of swift diffusion from a single corridor seemed less credible, considering the evidence of various sites, some of which have older dates, scattered widely across the continent. The archaeological community had to face the painful truth that the early Americans were present in this part of the world much earlier and by means different from what they had thought. These new findings compelled a reassessment of the scientific models and history books regarding the migration timelines. The more the evidence piled up, the less it became possible to deny that Clovis was not the first wave, nor the only early culture present in North America. They were instead a part of a larger narrative involving migrations and adaptations that took place well before 13,000 years ago. The ejection of the Clovis first theory ushered in new possibilities of how humans crossed and settled in the Americas. It also changed the focus from the questions of cultural complexity, tool use, and the survival strategies of the earliest inhabitants of these lands. The story, which was once a single migration corridor at the world's end, became an epic one, rich and more fascinating. With Clovis's primacy challenged, attention turned to another compelling theory: how the first Americans might have traversed the Pacific coast, leading us to the Kelp Highway and its implications. The Kelp Highway migration. As the ice-free corridor theory faltered, scientists turned their focus to an alternative hypothesis known as the Kelp Highway. This idea suggests that ancient peoples traveled by boat along the Pacific coastline, moving south from the Beringia region through a rich and resourceful marine environment. Instead of trekking through icy, barren land, early settlers skirted along shorelines abundant with seafood, plants, and shelter. The kelp forest ecosystem along the northwest coast provided a welcoming habitat teeming with seals, shellfish, fish, and edible seaweeds. These resources created a sustainable food supply for small, mobile groups of hunter-gatherers. The coastal route would have allowed gradual movement down the west coast of North America, enabling early Americans to follow food sources rather than enduring hostile inland conditions. This maritime migration theory fits better with archaeological evidence showing coastal occupation dating back before the ice corridor opened. It also aligns with genetic studies suggesting multiple waves of migration into the Americas at various times. In this model, boats or rafts enabled early humans to travel more safely and efficiently along the coast, rather than over frozen tundras or glaciers. Rimrock Draw's discovery strengthens this theory because the age of its artifacts predates the corridor's opening by thousands of years. It points to a population already well established far inland during the last glacial maximum. The journey of these people would have included coastal travel before moving inland, supported by waterways and passable landscapes near rivers and streams. The Kelp Highway hypothesis also explains the diversity of early sites scattered far from the corridor's path. It suggests a dynamic spread of people following varied environmental opportunities. Coastal routes could have provided migration highways, connecting multiple regions, unlike the singular corridor once hypothesized. This theory demands a rethink about the travel technologies and marine knowledge of ancient peoples. It implies early Americans were skilled watercraft builders and opportunistic foragers, capable of exploiting complex coastal ecosystems. This paints them as highly adaptable, far beyond the rugged image shaped by earlier theories. As research continues, scientists seek more coastal archaeological sites, often challenging due to sea level changes since the Ice Age. But every new inland discovery, like Rimrock Draw, adds weight to the idea that early migration was multifaceted and maritime in nature. These pieces together reveal a staggeringly complex story about how the Americas were first populated. The realization that early peoples might have arrived via sea routes challenges us to broaden our understanding of human ingenuity and resilience in the face of Ice Age challenges. It sets the stage for the remarkable individual finds that put Rimrock Draw at the center of this unfolding historical puzzle. With coastal migration gaining traction, one discovery in Rimrock Draw captured extraordinary attention: a butchered camel tooth that would rewrite the timeline of human presence in North America. The camel tooth revelation. One of the most startling discoveries at Rimrock Draw came in 2012 when researchers digging deep, about 8 feet below the surface, unearthed fragments of a camel tooth. At first, the idea of camels in Oregon might seem surprising, even unbelievable. Yet, camels actually originated in North America millions of years ago, before migrating to Asia and Africa. Known as Camelops hesternus, these ancient camels were enormous, standing nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing up to 2,000 pounds, making them larger and more powerful than any modern camel species. What set this find apart was not just the camel tooth itself, but the clear evidence of human interaction. Cut marks on the bone showed that ancient people had butchered the animal, indicating hunting rather than scavenging. This was a direct sign that humans at Rimrock Draw were skilled hunters targeting massive megafauna. Rather than a random carcass, this tooth represented hunted prey, confirming that people were actively engaged in big game hunting over 18,000 years ago. The context of the find made it even more remarkable. The tooth was buried beneath a layer of volcanic ash from Mount St. Helens, but this ash was not from the well-known eruption in 1980. Geochemical analysis revealed that the ash dated back about 15,600 years, effectively sealing the camel tooth in a natural time capsule. Since the tooth lay beneath this ash layer, scientists knew it had to be older than the eruption itself. To determine just how old, experts turned to radiocarbon dating. Testing the enamel of the tooth yielded a date of 18,250 years before present. The present, defined as the year 1950 in carbon dating conventions. This put humanity's presence at Rimrock Draw well beyond the accepted arrival of the Clovis people by more than 5,000 years, rewriting the known timeline of settlement on the continent. Such a revelation shook the foundation of North American archaeology. This finding not only indicated a very old age, but also implied that humans had gone through the last ice age, hunting and living in this very unfavorable glacier-covered area of the planet. The hunters of these gigantic mammoth-like creatures were equipped only with comparatively rudimentary tools, and this very fact demonstrated a high degree of human adaptation and skill that was not recognized before. The consumption of such large animals with such primitive tools indicated that there was a lot more to these early settlers than was previously thought, and it even refuted some assumptions about the abilities and the ways of life of ancient peoples. The camel tooth discovery was part of a larger picture. The associated artifacts and remains strongly pointed to a long-term occupation with several layers of tools, animal bones, and other signs of human activity, stating that the population was sustained. The date from the tooth served as a minimum age marker, but later finds suggested that the living at Rimrock Draw was happening even earlier. The stratigraphy of the site uncovered artifacts beneath the very tooth, suggesting a complex and long-lasting human presence. The scientists acknowledged that the human-environment interaction of this age and the coexistence of humans with animals necessitated a complete rethinking of migration models and adaptation strategies. If humans were already present here 18,000 years ago, They must have gone through the most extreme and varied climatic conditions that modern humans had only very recently learned to cope with, or rather, to navigate. The finding of the camel tooth was a very concrete and striking illustration of the ancient people's ability to endure hardships and their excellent skills in hunting. The discovery of the camel tooth had a huge impact not only on the field of archaeology, but also on the fields of anthropology and paleontology. It made researchers think of new questions like, what was the reason for the extinction of megafauna? What were the environmental impacts of humans? And how did the early Americans manage to create the technology to hunt the giants of the Ice Age? The tooth was a major piece in a big and intricate puzzle that was slowly revealing a bygone world where prehistoric humans and gigantic animals cohabitated. Rimrock Draw's every new find seemed to add not only more, but also more vividness to the tale, converting a secluded site into a memorial of human history and the struggle for survival. The evidence from the camel tooth would soon be corroborated and enriched by amazing tools that would tell even more about the people who inhabited this place. Some of these tools would provide a direct and astonishing connection to the ancient animals they hunted. Ancient tools and blood residue. Among the treasures at Rimrock Draw were beautifully crafted stone tools made from an unusual orange agate stone. This material was prized by ancient peoples because it fractures like glass, allowing for razor-sharp edges perfect for cutting and scraping. Such fine craftsmanship reveals a sophisticated understanding of toolmaking, far beyond worldviews that portrayed early humans as rudimentary. What makes these tools even more remarkable is that the closest source of this orange agate lies over 100 miles away, indicating these groups either undertook long journeys to acquire it or maintained trade networks with other communities. The tools themselves functioned as versatile implements, scrapers, effectively ancient Swiss Army knives designed with multiple cutting edges. These were not merely simple weapons, but multi-purpose survival tools. Such artifact diversity implied that Rimrock Draw was not just a transient campsite, but a long-term home where people fashioned, repaired, and reused their equipment. It reveals a community with deep knowledge and planning. In a groundbreaking analysis, scientists tested residues on some of these scrapers to detect ancient proteins trapped in the microscopic cracks of the stone. They found traces of blood, specifically from an extinct species of bison, a beast far larger than most modern buffalo. This discovery provided the smoking gun linking these implements directly to hunting and butchering large Ice Age animals. The survival of such blood proteins for over 18,000 years is exceptional and confirms these tools' active use in processing game. Further evidence of the long-term complex occupation came from another scraper buried even deeper beneath the volcanic ash. This means the artifact predated even the famous camel tooth, pushing the timeline of human activity at Rimrock Draw further into the past. The site also yielded 68 stone spear points, varying in style and age, some as old as 13,000 years, and others closer to 7,000. This range demonstrates continuous human presence and technological evolution over millennia. The rich array of artifacts also included tiny blade fragments, cores of chipped stone used to make tools, and waste flakes discarded during manufacture. Far from a brief stopover, these finds show Rimrock Draw as a place of ongoing reproduction, repair, and innovation in toolmaking. The site served as a central hub for survival activities, reflecting the lives of organized, skillful hunter-gatherers deeply connected to their environment. The most haunting discovery was human hair, at least 29 samples from a minimum of 3 individuals preserved in clay. The hair strands showed natural ends, indicating they had never been cut by metal scissors, which were unknown to these people. Holding such ancient hair connects us viscerally to a past human presence, stirring a sense of continuity with those who lived through some of Earth's toughest climatic chapters. All this evidence, from tools to blood residue to human remains, paints a vivid picture of a thriving community facing the Ice Age world head-on. These people hunted giant camels, massive bison, and other megafauna with simple yet highly effective weapons. They adapted to their environment with ingenuity and resilience, crafting tools that matched specific needs and ecological niches. Together, the camel tooth and the tools discovered beneath layers of ash and sediment reveal not just human presence, but a sophisticated culture capable of survival, adaptation, and perhaps even cooperation. Rimrock Draw stands as a testament to the fact that human ingenuity has endured for far longer in North America than previously believed. As the story emerges more clearly, the next challenge would be understanding the environment these ancient people inhabited, where they hunted these massive creatures and weathered the axial shifts of the Ice Age. Life in the Ice Age environment. The people who lived at Rimrock Draw faced a world unlike anything we experience today. This was during the last glacial maximum, the coldest peak of the Ice Age, when temperatures were roughly 10 degrees Fahrenheit colder than modern averages. Massive ice sheets covered much of Canada and large parts of the northern United States, shaping the landscape with glaciers and freezing winds. Yet Oregon itself remained ice-free, though cold and wet, a unique refuge amid the harsh conditions. Enormous lakes formed from glacial meltwaters dominated the region, with Lake Fort Rock spanning over 750 square miles, and Lake Chihuahuan even larger and hundreds of feet deep. Vast pine, spruce, and juniper forests thrived where valleys now hold deserts. These forests and water sources supported a wealth of animals that today live exclusively at higher elevations. The environment provided a rich but challenging ecosystem for humans and animals alike. Rimrock Draw's proximity to a permanent stream meant fresh water was always available, an invaluable resource in any era. This flowing water likely attracted large herds of megafauna, giant creatures that defined the Ice Age. Mammoths, some towering 13 feet tall and weighing up to 10 tons, roamed the landscape alongside mastodons, enormous ground sloths, and multiple species of ancient horses. These were formidable animals, sources of both sustenance and danger. Among the most fearsome predators was the short-faced bear, a beast standing 11 feet tall on its hind legs and capable of running faster than horses. Saber-toothed cats stalked the forests as well, each animal part of a complex, precarious food web. These predators created a world of constant risk for early humans, requiring vigilance, strategy, and cooperation for survival. Hunting a 2,000-pound camel with nothing but stone-tipped spears was no small feat. Rimrock Draw's inhabitants were not just passive audience to their environment. On the contrary, they were very skillful in harvesting even the slightest advantages it had to offer. They slayed big animals for food, skins, and tools, collected seeds, berries, and roots, and lived a seasonal nomadic life by following animal migrations and plant cycles. The rock shelter provided them with protection from storms and cold winds. It is likely that they used animal skin hanging from the rock, or made shelters with a wooden frame for their indoor comfort and protection. Their dressing was a sign of great skill. At the site where a bone needle was discovered, it is believed that they made fur parkas, leather leggings, and boots that were very warm for a person in freezing temperatures. The clothing was one of the ways that survival in this environment would have been nearly impossible. They also made use of spear throwers, which they called atlatls, wooden levers that helped them to throw spears farther and with more force, thus giving hunters a vital advantage against the dangerous prey. The huge amount of toolkits and the preparation that was done before they started were elements that made us think these were not just simple Stone Age wanderers, but rather resourceful groups that were deeply adapted to the Ice Age world, whose changes were relentless and sometimes even unforgiving. The environment played a very important role in their lives, but the why too shaped the environment in turn by applying hunting pressure and land use. The eruption of Mount Mazama, which happened about 7,600 years ago, covered the land with ash and created Crater Lake, ending this ancient lifestyle, and the site was deserted. The Ice Age world of Rimrock Draw was both a place of great danger and great opportunity at the same time. To stay here for thousands of years, going through glacial cycles, megafauna, and volcanic catastrophes, these early Americans had to be very courageous, innovative, and resilient, which was a challenge to our understanding of human endurance. How this groundbreaking evidence has been received, however, has created as much controversy and debate as fascination among experts and skeptics. Skepticism and scientific debate. As remarkable as the discoveries at Rimrock Draw are, they have not escaped scrutiny or skepticism within the scientific community. Many archaeologists urge caution because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Some question whether the artifacts might have shifted downward through the soil over thousands of years, a natural process known as bioturbation, which can move objects vertically through sediment layers over time. If this were true, the deep dating of artifacts might not accurately reflect their original context. Dr. Donald Grayson of the University of Washington voiced such concerns, saying that no one would fully accept these findings until it was proven that the artifacts had not moved through the soil. This is a valid scientific challenge since factors like freezing and thawing cycles, animal burrowing, and root growth can disturb stratigraphy. The stakes are high, as confirming the antiquity of Rimrock Draw would rewrite history and displace long-held archaeological paradigms. However, the Rimrock Draw research team has countered these claims with multiple lines of consistent evidence. They have dated not only the camel tooth, but also bison teeth, charcoal, and sediment samples, all pointing to a coherent timeline that matches stratigraphic expectations. The volcano's ash layer remains intact and undisturbed, adding a natural timestamp that strengthens their case. The unusual orange agate stone, not naturally occurring around Rimrock Draw, clearly indicates human transport from over 100 miles away, supporting the premise of deliberate artifact deposition. Another compelling argument comes from the chemical analysis of blood residue on stone tools, showing ancient proteins preserved within microscopic cracks. This biological evidence ties the tools directly to extinct megafauna hunted by humans, an unlikely coincidence if artifacts migrated from higher layers. Together, this layered web of geological, biological, and chemical fingerprints builds a strong case for the site's authenticity. Despite this, the full scientific paper detailing the findings has not yet been published in a peer-reviewed journal. The research team, led by Dr. Patrick O'Grady, acknowledges the need for rigorous review. While a detailed paper was anticipated in 2023, it remains in preparation, leaving the wider academic community eager yet watchful. The process of peer review will be crucial in either solidifying Rimrock Draw's place in history or prompting reassessment. The controversy reflects a broader tension between groundbreaking discoveries and the conservatism common in scientific inquiry, where caution tempers enthusiasm. Extraordinary claims challenge established narratives and demand higher standards of proof, especially when they disrupt decades of consensus. This dynamic is essential to scientific progress, but can slow acceptance of revolutionary ideas. Meanwhile, independent archaeologists continue to monitor ongoing research from Rimrock Draw closely, recognizing the potential significance, whether or not all details are ultimately confirmed. The site invites a reevaluation not only of migration routes, but of early human adaptability and the resilience of cultures long lost to time. As the debate unfolds, the implications for North American prehistory hang in the balance, reminding us that history is often rewritten not by textbooks, but by discoveries that challenge us to rethink our origins. Understanding the scrutiny Rimrock Draw faces sets the stage to explore what its confirmed truths might mean for the story of America's first inhabitants. Rewriting America's first history. If the dates from Rimrock Draw are confirmed through peer review, the site would become the oldest known human settlement in North America, older than the Clovis culture by more than 5,000 years. This doesn't just adjust a timeline, it changes how we understand when and how the first Americans arrived. For decades, Clovis was seen as the beginning. Rimrock Draw suggests the story started much earlier with people who were highly capable and resilient. These early inhabitants lived during the peak of the last ice age, facing colder temperatures and extreme conditions. Yet they survived by hunting large animals like camels and bison, using advanced tools, tailored clothing, and coordinated strategies. Their way of life points to organized communities well adapted to harsh environments. Theorems have raised the possibility that the first inhabitants of North America were the ancestors of the present-day indigenous population who had been living in the area for a long time. One of the reasons for this is the identification of ancient artifacts in the area where the ice-free corridor was thought to have been located. The new evidence has led to the re-evaluation of the archaeological sites in the region and has allowed the inscription of a new timeline for the North American diaspora that reaches back to the end of the last glaciation. Rimrock Draw provides links between archaeology and Native American folklore, which describes ancient worlds with giant animals and dramatic changes. What was once discarded now coincides with the existing physical proof. The heated discussions are still ongoing, but the collective discoveries make it possible to ask significant questions regarding the early migration, human adaptability, and even the extinction of large mammals. Rimrock Draw is a living testimony that history is still in the process of revealing its secrets, and what we find out can change the narrative about our origins. Rimrock Draw pushes the story of America's first people far deeper into the past, revealing a tough, adaptable culture living through the Ice Age. It challenges long-held ideas and reconnects us with a shared human beginning that feels both distant and familiar. If this discovery sparked your curiosity, stay with the story. Look to the next video on your screen to keep digging deeper into history's unanswered questions. Like the video, subscribe, and continue exploring the moments that quietly changed everything.